Hi there, it's Carolin Soldo here. Welcome back to our channel with the most powerful business scaling strategies for your powerhouse business. Today I'm speaking with Charlene Li all about how to build your own disruption mindset to stay competitive in business and create massive positive change in the world. As always, before we get started, make sure you hit the bell and you subscribe to our channel so you always know when new episodes become available here every single week. Welcome to Powerhouse Business on YouTube. I'm your host, Carolin Soldo. I'm a business owner, business scaling master, and mom of 2 boys. I love thinking big, pushing boundaries, and doing things differently. Most of all, I'm all about achieving massive growth with ease and helping you scale your business by living the life you love. Let's go. For the past 2 decades, Charlene Li has been helping people literally see the future. She's an expert on digital transformation, leadership, customer experience, and the future of work. She's the author of 6 books, including the New York Times bestseller, Open Leadership. Her latest book is the bestseller, The Disruption Mindset. She's also the founder and senior fellow at Autopilot, a disruptive analyst firm acquired in 2015 by Profit. She's named one of the most creative people in business by Fast Company, and Charlene is also a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Business School, and she lives in San Francisco. Welcome, Charlene. Charlene, kick us off with maybe an overview of what disruption really means to you and how we can start to understand what a disruption mindset really is.
Sure. I've been thinking about and talking about disruption for over a decade. I started my company back in 2008 in the middle of the recession with a very disruptive business model. Mm-hmm. And so not only do I research and write about it, I've actually done it and built a successful business that I sold back in 2015. And so when I think about disruption, I think about it as a positive force because we've been thinking about disruption backwards. We think of it as something to avoid versus something to run towards. Mm-hmm. And we're always looking for some sort of disruptive technology or innovation that can drive growth. But what I found is that growth itself is disruptive. We go to the very edges of a big new growth strategy, and then we realize how hard it's going to be because it means doing everything that we've done in the past differently. And so you know what most leaders do, most organizations, they step away, they step back. They don't want to move forward into that. So the companies I wanted to study were the ones who step into this all the time. What is it that they do differently? What is it in their mindset, in their cultures, in their leadership strategies even, that allow them to step into that growth phase and not be scared off by it, but actually thrive with it? So I think of the disruption mindset as the ability to take on and create exponential change and have impact and growth.
Yeah. And it's interesting when I first looked into this, I thought, oh, this is sort of like innovation. But I'm getting the sense that this is more not aggressive. That has a negative feeling to it. It's more expansive, like there's more opportunity in it, right? So it goes beyond just innovating. What's the difference between innovation and disruption to you?
That's a great question. I think of innovation as a false promise of our generation. We think we want to have innovation and we want it delivered with a big, easy button on it that we can just press and like, woohoo, we've got innovation, we've got growth. And that's not the way it works. I think of disruption as being honest about what it's going to take to grow, to really change, to have a huge impact. It is not going to be easy. So it incorporates innovation, of course, but the whole idea is that you are willing to take on and go on this journey, knowing that at the end of it, it's going to have been worth the fight, worth the journey to go on.
Yeah, for sure. So many of my clients are asking me about, they call it innovation or pivoting or just changing their business for so many reasons. Some have this intuition that's calling them to something new, and some are really just forced to change because so much is shifting in the environment and all around the world. So to get started, to really allow ourselves to overcome these fears, and you say it's hard and I can see why, what can we do to embrace disruption more? So to overcome the fears and the challenges and not stay away from it, but actually really embrace it.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. The reason why we avoid disruption is because of the uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that's because we've been trained our entire business and professional lives to avoid uncertainty, to make sure things are clear and predictable and steady, because that's what you get rewarded for. Getting the A plus, hitting 100%, that's what you get rewarded for. And disruption requires a very different mindset. It goes, I don't know what it is. I'm like 50% sure, maybe 70% sure, even 90% sure. Is that going to be okay? And for most people, they're like, no, I have to be 100% sure. And so what happens is that something changes inside a disruptive organization. They believe that the future is so worth it that even though they can't understand and see that future completely, they have enough to go on, enough to get started. And the biggest thing that these disruptive organizations do, they do one thing and one thing extraordinarily well. They are 100% focused on their future customer. Okay, of course, they love to serve their current customer, but they supposedly are already doing that quite well. They're executing well today. What's really hard is setting that beautiful, profitable customer to one side and saying, we love you, we're going to serve you well, but we need to turn our attention to where the future is going to be. And we need to make the preparations today to pursue them for that future. And that's what these organizations do so well. They focus on that future customer, and that gives them the hope. That gives them this sense of purpose to go on this journey, this uncertain, really hard journey that they have to go on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Do you have any examples in mind? I can think of some, but they may not be what you're thinking of. Any organizations that we may or may not know that have done this really well?
Yeah, one of my favorite examples is Adobe. Many of us know Adobe for their marketing suite, their advertising. And back in 2010, 2011, they were looking at their creative suite, which was delivered on CD-ROMs in packages that were sold on stores, on the shelves. Mm-hmm. And you buy it once and you can use it forever. And they said, that's not the future. The future is going to be cloud, it's going to be mobile devices, collaborative. That requires our product to be in the cloud. But they had a few problems. Nobody wanted this. Everybody in their current market loved Creative Suite. They were happy to pay $1,000 to be able to use that license for a month. And the idea of having to pay Adobe month after month was just not appetizing to them. Mm. Their employees and the entire organization was geared towards serving that customer. And they also knew that if they were to make this shift because of the transition of the ways that revenues are recognized, they would have losses for 2 years. And as a publicly traded company, that was going to be very dangerous for them. But they believed in this future. They did tons of research, and the entire executive team aligned around this future customer. So they pulled the trigger, and they went to Wall Street and go, we're doing great. We just lost a ton of money. Here's evidence that our strategy is working. Isn't this great? Now, if you post a loss on Wall Street, your stock price usually tanks. Their stock price took off. There was no, quote, evidence on the surface that this was a smart thing to do. And they proved it to be right.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'm thinking Tesla potentially too. That's company with big losses for many years, but I mean, look at them, now, and clearly, the leader had a big vision in the team as well. Let's say a customer comes to you, and let's say they're a small business, and they say, it sounds like a lot of it has to do with the customer and knowing, what's changing and what's shifting and what trends are on the horizon. But what should they do? Can you give us a little, maybe more tactical advice as to how we can actually get started?
Yes. So to figure out where your customers are going, talk to your existing customers, because most likely amongst your existing customers, some of them are already starting to shift. Maybe it's somebody who came in and in the past, you really couldn't serve them very well. So you said, we wish you could, but it's not a great fit. Or it's somebody who is a pretty happy customer with you, but they're beginning to start complaining. And they're saying, I wish you did these things. Now, a traditional company would say, well, too bad. I mean, this is what we do. If we're not a good fit, go someplace else. But a disruptive organization would say, wait, tell me more. Let me be curious about how your needs are changing. Is this a new marker for a new market opportunity, or is it truly something we can't pursue? But at least listen to that and open up the possibilities in those conversations to a new opportunity that you may never have considered before. And then I would say, you think about having a board of directors even, but not of your shareholders or top people or influencers and experts. Think about having a board of customers and find these potential future customers and put them on that board. This advisory board shouldn't be made up of your best and biggest customers. They should be actually made up of the ones who complain the most, who think that you could do so much better than you already are. They're going to be the ones who keep you pushing forward and keep you honest about what your capabilities are. And I think the last thing to do is to make everybody in your organization part of that radar of listening for customers. Make it the job of every single person, not just the people in marketing or your job as the leader. It's every person's responsibility, even if they don't ever talk to a customer. Mm-hmm. I love it when people in finance say, hey, I've got an idea. We keep having this problem with our customers and billing. Why don't we try this instead? Because we could open up new markets. When everybody is focused on the customer and pulling and looking for that future customer, someday somebody somewhere is going to go, I think I found one. I found a customer here. Everybody gather around. Here, look at them. They're so interesting. Let's find out what's really going on with them.
Yeah. I think this is a really big piece of advice for especially the smaller businesses who are oftentimes so siloed still, right? And the business owner not necessarily thinking about, including them all, because there is a copywriter and there's the finance person and the accountant is always in the back. And, that was my mindset in the past. And I don't know that I really disrupted anything yet in my history or in my career, but I've seen so many benefits to bringing everybody, at the table, no matter what their function, was or is in my business. And regardless of how much hours or how much time they even spend, because they're, looking at this from so many different points of view. And it's just been so valuable, at least once a month, to have a conversation with everybody on the team to say, what's working, what's not working, what do you see? And great advice. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings
the more frequent you can make those conversations, the better off you are. And in particular, I love using what I call an empathy map. An empathy map shows that person, that future customer, maybe gives them a name. And then instead of describing them like demographically or psychographically, you talk about what is it that they say, what do they think, what do they feel, and what do they actually do. When you can map out that future customer in a very tangible way, you can literally stand in their shoes and see what it is, see the world through their eyes. Yeah. And that's incredibly valuable, because now I may not remember all the details, but I will remember what it feels like to stand in their shoes. And that's a really powerful model to bring and to share with everybody in your organization.
Yeah. And then you can communicate it well. And then your marketing works, and then you can connect with those customers. Yeah, so powerful. Yeah. So this makes me think of different types of people. And you said gender and demographics. So yeah, I know, we always look at men versus women and gender differences. So is there a gap when it comes to disruption and how different genders deal with this or adopt it?
Yes, there is, unfortunately. I surveyed 1,000 leaders from all around the world. And what I found was a gender gap, and it's very pronounced here in the United States. What I did is I looked at the characteristics of leaders who are disruptive, and they tend to exhibit two characteristics in particular: an openness to change mindset and leadership behaviors that empower and inspire people. And so when you look at those two things, you can run into different archetypes, but across all of them, men and women could have the same levels of capabilities in these areas, but the women would rate themselves a whole step lower in their disruptive capabilities. Mm-hmm. We ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel your ability is to create exponential change and impact? And the men always rated themselves higher than the women across the board, even though they had the exact same characteristics and scores underlying this. And additional research has shown that if you have been repeatedly in situations where you do not feel like you belong, you do not feel like you're included, that you're the only person in the room, the only woman, only person of color, only person from a different socioeconomic background, then you are doing everything possible to just be in the room, to feel like you belong. That's where you're using your energy. It's very difficult to raise your hand in that kind of environment and to say, I want to disagree. I want to throw a bomb in the middle of this. I want to disrupt something. Because if you do, you have to be sure that you're going to be 100% right. Because if you're wrong, you're risking your ability, your right to be at the table, to be in the room. Because you're doing everything again to just be in there. So this is a real wake-up call for people who are leading diverse teams, that it's great to have the numbers, to count them on a diversity basis, but that's not enough. If we really want to have a disruptive organization, then we need to cultivate leaders who see themselves as disruptive, act that way too as well. And that requires that we give them that psychological safety to feel like they belong, so that they can raise their hands and be that disruptive force in the room.
Yeah, that's so great. I have a client, Charlene. She is a leadership consultant and coach, and her mantra is lead before you manage. And it's all about creating that safety and open communication and being more of a coach to, your team than a manager to them. And she has countless examples of, just huge changes in culture and performance and happiness too, right?
Right.
People's happiness in their work and their jobs. It's huge. Yeah, that's awesome. You talk about the gulp moment. What is that?
Okay, the big gulp moment is when you come face to face with the reality that you're going to have to be disruptive, and it scares the daylights out of you. It's like, okay, I know what we have to do. Mm-hmm. And you're looking over that edge and you're taking this big, huge gulp going, am I going to jump? Am I going to go do this now? And you're looking around your team members and you're like, are we going to do this? Are we actually going to do this? And you go, no, we've done all the research. We've done all the preparation. We're going to do it. So you take a big gulp and you jump. You're holding hands and you're just going over that edge. And you're prepared and everything, but it's still just a mind-numbing, just like, it's just, you feel like the pit, you feel in the pit of your stomach. You're confident, but at the moment, you're like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. And that, I think, is a moment where courage and confidence is most important. The courage to leap into the unknown, even though you don't know 100% how it's going to turn out. And the confidence isn't that you're going to be successful. Confidence says, no matter what the outcome, we're going to be okay. Because if you didn't believe that, if you didn't have confidence that you were going to be okay, you would never take that leap. Yeah. So I look at courage and confidence in a slightly different way. It requires those things at that big gulp moment. You won't move forward. And the vast majority of companies I've worked with know what the strategy is. They know it. They see it absolutely clearly, and they don't go forward because they can't face that big gulp moment. Yeah. So that's why it's such an important time to prepare for that moment, because it's going to come. You're going to have to make that decision to go forward or not. And it is a really terrifying moment. I can definitely say, like, are we really going to do this? Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it almost seems as though I would build the confidence first. So I would, research and collect the data and, analyze and do my due diligence. But then when it comes to actually having the courage, it seems to be more of an emotional thing.
Yeah, the confidence part is also very emotional, because you can do all the research in the world, like Adobe had done tons of research, spreadsheets all over the place. In the end, they still didn't know whether it was going to work or not. They really, really didn't know. They were pretty sure it was, but there was like some inkling in the back of the mind, like, we're not 100% sure. So they built in the safeguards and things and the mitigation plans that in case it didn't work, they would have a way to back out of it too, as well. But I think that part of it was incredibly emotional for them to say, well, even if it doesn't work, are we going to be okay? And they looked around like, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be okay. Mm-hmm. But we've got to move forward and do this. Even if we fail, it'll be okay. The problem is so many organizations think that if they fail, they will not be okay. Mm-hmm. They don't put enough time and effort into thinking, well, what happens if it doesn't work? What happens then? Because unless you know that and you know what the consequences are and you're okay with that, you're never going to go forward unless it's 100% sure. And that never happens, which is why things fail.
Yeah.
Those mitigation plans are that you actually have to engineer the confidence.
Right.
It's something that you have to have there. And then the courage comes from saying, okay, I'll take this on, even though it's going to be really scary and hard.
Yeah, great point. Having a plan B, right? So you jump,
Yeah.
but even if the parachute breaks, you'll make it down somehow, and you'll be able to keep going. Yeah, really
Right.
smart. So in your book, The Disruption Mindset, you lay out more of a plan, right? So you get us ready for what the mindset looks like and how we can begin to really step into it. But is it like a roadmap to you? Is your goal with it to get all or as many organizations as possible ready to take that step?
Yes, it is. I believe that there are so many problems in this world that need to be addressed and solved. We're not going to get there by incrementally making things better. We're going to have to disrupt our way into that future. Yeah. And we need leaders who are confident in their ability to create disruption. And what I mean by that, again, positive disruption and exponential change and impact. And that will result in growth. So my goal in the book was to lay out a step-by-step, 3-step plan of how do you actually do this, a strategy that's focused on future customers, a leadership role that you take on that creates movements, because you need that momentum of a movement to carry you through these tough journeys ahead. And third, how do you build a culture that's capable of dealing with flux, all the things that are there, so you're not rigid and brittle and easy to break, but they can move along with all the changes that go, and beliefs of that organization, and how to cultivate that. So I love the idea, the high level disruption, but I wanted a playbook, literally like step by step. How do you do this? What are the elements of disruptive organization? So that's that was my hope and plan for the book. And never did I anticipate when I finished it and published it in the fall of 2019 that there would be a pandemic upon us.
Yeah.
And so the book has been extremely helpful, I think, in terms of laying out a path forward, especially with so many things changing. How do you deal with disruption? How do you make sure you're being disruptive rather than being disrupted? And we've all been disrupted.
Right.
All of our relationships, everything have been torn apart. But how do you build back into that future and be a disruptive force yourself to build that growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And to your point, you wrote this before even knowing that, the whole world would change on us, and now people are forced to be disruptive. But it's such a great way to, stay excited and stay, at the top of your game and keep going and just create the most powerful things that you don't even know, could ever exist for the future. And for any type of industry, any type of business, men, women, all of us, it's just such a powerful playbook. And the way you describe it, it's so, it's tangible in many ways. And I think, anybody, if you're in business, you got to read it. You got to, go out there and read it, especially now. It's, it's exciting to to see the possibilities, what ideas and next steps can come out of it. It's just awesome.
Yes. Well, thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right now, I love this statistic from the Bureau of the Census that the business formation rate is up this past year in 2020. It's 43% higher than in 2019.
Wow.
43% higher. And that's including people who are signing up to just get a license to be an independent contractor, but also people at the same rate are creating businesses that are paying wages, hiring people, corporations. Everything is up 43%. And it's again saying that people are not, the huge disruptions of jobs going away, industries being completely changed. They're not going away and waiting for this to pass. They're going out and saying, hey, where are the opportunities? Mm-hmm. And I think of two approaches to this. You can wait for the disruption to pass. You're just going to wait for all the pieces to come down and hope that they don't hit you. Or you're jumping up in the air, picking up the pieces before they fall to the ground and putting them back together into something new. That's what disruptors do. the more disruptive and chaotic the world is, the more they see opportunity. And they see more opportunities to serve and to have a purpose in creating that change.
Yeah. It's the mindset, right? It's how do you look at it? Do you embrace it? Is it an opportunity, or is it, something that holds you back and keeps you stuck? You're so right, though. There's so many people, they say, Carolyn, now is my time to launch a business, and now is my time to really double down on my business. And what are we waiting for? Clearly, we don't know what's coming tomorrow, and time is, short. You never know how much of it you have. So, why not now? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a great time. I think we're going to see a huge amount of innovation over the next 2 years because of what's been brewing as we are sitting here in isolation and social distancing from each other. But we're still very connected. And I think even more so, there's even more of an impetus now that these customers need service, they need products, they need organizations to come up and really serve them well.
Absolutely. So that makes me want to ask you one more maybe personal question, Charlene. What's next for you?
Oh, great question. I'm working on a new book, of course. I'm intrigued by how leadership has changed. The disruption mindset looked at strategy, leadership, and culture, and I want to write my next book just fully on leadership. What is true about leadership has been a timeless truth across the ages, but also what has changed. What does it take to be a modern leader now, but in particular, a modern leader who's capable of driving exponential change? Because it's one thing to say, I'm going to be a manager and manage everything to be the same. I believe that leaders create change. And if you're not creating change, you're not a leader, you're a manager. And it doesn't depend on title. So what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to create change? How do you go out there and actually create change as a leader? We don't look at leadership from that perspective of a leader creating change in the world. True. And especially with things changing so quickly, how do you manage yourself and the people that you're leading in that way? Again, leader not based on title, but creating change. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Powerful. Yeah, and I also see this is so needed for the people who are put into these positions now, right? So many people are stepping up and they're, being given these opportunities, but they don't know how to handle it, and they don't have the resources and the training and, all of it to, like you said, manage themselves or lead themselves, but then lead other people with the idea of how can I create change. So it's very timely and it's exciting. It's awesome. So how can people connect with you? There's several books you've written. Obviously, you have a website, but your preferred way to connect with community, what is that?
I love using LinkedIn because we're all on it, and it's easy to stay connected and updated with each other. So I'm Charlene Li at LinkedIn. Just search my name and you'll find it. And I would love to stay connected with you all. Follow me, connect with me. I look forward to hearing about your journey, what's working for you, what's not. Because that's how I do my research, is to hear from people who are going through the journey themselves. So I hope you'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. This has been powerful, Charlene. You are amazing. I'm excited about, your future work, and most definitely recommend, your books, and always, amazing to create this conversation with, powerful women, especially in the world, who are, really making such a big impact. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And now Charlene and I would like to hear from you. Leave us a comment below. How are things going in your business? Did you have any big ahas during this episode? And what does disruption really mean to you now that you know what a disruption mindset is all about? Leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. And now stay focused on your goals, because I believe that your message and your expertise needs to go out there to a lot more people. If you like this episode, make sure you give me a like and maybe share it with your friends. And then make sure you come back again next week. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.
What if you've been living your life on autopilot and there's never enough time for the things that truly matter, like your family or your health? The truth is that at some point, most people settle and they accept that this is just how life is, until it's too late and they finally hit a wall. I stopped living in autopilot and decided to live a beyond fulfilling life in all areas of life. And now I want to show you how to do the same. I want to teach you how to completely change the direction of your life in just 4 simple steps and start to live a beyond fulfilling life no matter what situation you're in. This is a completely new way to assess your life and find what you really want, why you want it, and how to get it. Make fulfillment your priority and act now.